Glenn Robbins. So we'll get some tourney analysis and maybe touch on some other things with the great Glenn Robbins. Literally, it's great to see you.
No one has ever looked at me and said those words, so I'm a little humbled and flattered. And although I will say you guys set me up perfectly, because when I logged in, the last thing I heard you say was disparaging remarks. And then you said, up next is Glenn Robbins. All right, well, we've set the parameters for this show.
The time.
Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Defo Show. Happy to have you guys with us this morning. I'm Jeff DeForest, the handsome gentleman, of course, is one Mike Lubie Lubitz. And Lubie, I didn't realize how many people I had pissed off, how many people I had alienated over the years. I was kind of caught up in, I guess, the mantra of Howard Schnellenberger that the Gators were the enemy of South Florida, that if you were a Gator fan, you were some kind of a traitor, that even if you went to the school there, by the time you got back to South Florida, you should be rooting for some reason for another team. They were labeled and categorized as being obnoxious. I don't know. You're a Florida State guy. This is ultimately, you would have to think, good for the state of Florida that their basketball has gotten to the point where 2 years ago we have two teams from South Florida in the Final Four. This year we have the national champion, the Florida Gators, 23-1 at one point during the regular season, according to the Greek, who said he hammered this team, of course, at 23-1. I was on with him yesterday. He couldn't remember who Schnellenberger was. He referred to him as the guy with the mic. Oh, quickly they forget there, Louie. But where did all these Gator fans come from last night? Unbelievable. I understand when you take a shot of the, whatever the center is where they play basketball in Gainesville. Do you know the name of the arena there?
O'Connell. The
O'Connell Center. Okay.
O'Connell Center, yeah.
As the only O'Connell I know is Kathleen O'Connell, the horse trainer. But the O'Connell Center, that was packed. I mean, that was not uncommon to see something like that where the fans turn out in droves. But all over South Florida, all of a sudden, then it became a big news story for the local news stations. Lubie, as the Florida Gators end up winning the national championship. My stance, my position on, what would you call it? It's not really Gator hatred. I don't know that you really hate. Is hate a misused word in sports? Like, I hate those guys. You don't really hate.
I mean, I do.
Yeah, maybe you do. Duke, I hate him.
I do.
Notre Dame in football, it's gotten a little bit easier to like him with the new coach, but geez, hate him, right? And in this case, we had to witness the euphoria of the Gator fans as they survived a game that, by all rights, Lubie. Now, is there anything, the only thing worse, I guess, than sportscasters, and this used to be pretty common, you'd get tuned into a sports show, and what's the guy talking about? He's talking about his golf game. Yeah, I burned it 13, and that was a pretty good shot I hit in there. But what's worse now is, rarely do people actually allude to this because everybody tries to convince you that they're a winner all the time. But is there anything worse? I always talk about it than having some guy come up to you at the track and start showing you his losing tickets and then proceeding to cry like a baby. They left out the 4. So could this be, a case? I mean, is it fair to go ahead? I don't have any really grousing thoughts about losing the pool as yesterday with Houston, except that they're up effing 12 points. 12 points in the second half. It's 42-30, and they have the ball. And we're approaching somewhere around the 10-minute mark of the second half. You're thinking this is a miracle. I thought the Gators had come charging out of the gate to open up the second half. Instead, they're bottled up like they hadn't even been in the first half of the ball game. And Houston is up 12 points, has the ball, and you're thinking to yourself, please convert something here. Don't let these guys hang around. Don't let them stay in the ball game, because it did seem to me that in the end, the Gators would probably have more offensive firepower than the Houston Cougars did, and they had just enough. Now, a lot of things changed. Lubie, I don't know. What did you think was the most significant number? If you look at the storyline, what was the number one priority you would have to have if you were the Houston Cougars in that game? Kind of minimize Walter Clayton Jr.
Yeah, they did.
Did they not do that?
Man,
Guy had 11 points, his low for the postseason. He really didn't do anything until late in the ball game. Now, he did come up big late in the ball game, so he came up with a lot of clutch shots, including that little curling jump shot from three-point range that tied the game at 60. That was excellent. And in stark contrast to what we saw with St. John's early in the tournament in the second round with Luis and Rick Pitino, Clayton was a central figure as Todd Golden sent him out there with all the confidence in the world. And hey, listen, if we're going to win, we're going to need you to do something. So don't worry about it. As horrible as it's been so far and as insignificant as your contribution has been overall on the offensive end of the floor, we're going to go ahead and stick with you. This wasn't John Starks, and you would have to say, Lubie, was the kid not clutch at the critical moment of the ball game? He definitely was. But the most startling number to me, and the game might have been won at the free throw line. Florida Gators in the game ended up 17 of 21 on free throws. The Houston Cougars only went to the stripe 14 times. They had 14 attempts from the free throw line, 9 of 14. So you're looking at an 8-point differential there and a 7 shot differential in free throw attempts. But Jay Billis actually pointed this out. Now, normally I wouldn't be inclined to quote Jay Billis, but we want to credit him with pointing this out. And it was startling when it was revealed that, can you believe there were only 4 fouls called in the first half? Is that possible? 4 fouls total?
The first half, they didn't call any fouls. In the second half, they called everything. In the first 2 minutes, they called a lot on the Gators. Then they didn't call anything on the Gators again. That was magical. How the Gators could commit 5 fouls in 2.5 minutes and then only commit 2 fouls the next 17 minutes, playing the same defense, by the way. So that was impressive how the refs could be so helter-skelter. And in the first half, the other way, like they let Houston play and vice versa. They called 11 fouls on Houston over a 13-minute span. And that's literally
they called 3, I think, in 9 seconds or something.
And they were a lot of it was bogus bull crap that they let them get away with the entire. That's what players in any sport will tell you. Just be consistent, right? If you're doing something with, as much as people give Levon Hernandez crap for that game, the Braves got that strike zone for the entire series. That series, it was just so happened the Marlins got one game, and Levon took full advantage in that one game. But be consistent. Whatever it is, if you're calling it tight, you're calling it loose, be consistent. They weren't. They were all over the place in that game. The first half, they let them play. Second half, they were hard on the Gators for about 2.5 minutes, and then they were hard on Houston for 17. And we know that's what Houston wins by. They muddy it up. They bloody it up. And that's when Walter took advantage. Not Clayton, I'm sorry. Yeah, Walter Clayton. That's when he took advantage. He was going to the basket early, didn't get foul calls, and then late he was. And they kept parading them to the stripe when the Cougars had a nice lead, and that allowed the Gators to hang around. And then we know what Houston is. They're a rough and tumble defensive team that struggles on offense. And their first half was solid offensively. Their second half was an abomination. Their offense in the second half was an utter disaster.
Horrible, yes. Except for the very early portion when they opened up the 12-point lead. And then I'm thinking, wow, this is money in the bank for me because I needed Houston to win the one bracket pool that I was in. If Florida won, which they did, I'm out of the money. OOP, man, out of picture, as they say in dog racing. So there was a rooting interest there. Look, Florida came back from the dead 3 times in the last 3 games. They were down 9, right, versus Texas Tech. They were down 12, I think. Were they down 12 also against Auburn in the second half of their game? And late in the ball game, they appeared to have no shot. And no, that was Texas Tech. And then Auburn, they were down in the second half by double digits. Same thing here. And they managed to come back and win the game. So you can't discredit what they did. Officiating, though, I mean, how inconsistent is that? How bizarre is that, where you have 4 fouls total called in the first half of a ball game and 23 in the second half? They couldn't have changed the strategy and the style of play that much that it would merit that kind of discrepancy. So what the hell was going on out there, as Vince Lombardi would say?
It got tighter. The refs who just let them play, and that is to Houston's benefit, did a 180. Because I think Houston would have pulled away. If they let them just play the way they had played in the first half, I think eventually Houston would have pulled away. What happened is the refs got tighter and allowed the Gators to hang around. And that's what we saw for 4 straight games, where the Gators were outplayed. They had one lead, 8-6. They didn't lead again until it was like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Like, they won. They're the champions. But it was, as someone who, first of all, it was horrendous basketball.
This does sound like some negative Gator bias, though.
The offensive basketball, I mean, if you watch the game, that's how the game went. The offensive, if you watch the tournament, they were outplayed in 4 straight games. 4 straight games they were outplayed. They literally, they held like 2 leads. Like they won, and that became their MO. It's just frustrating to watch. And it wasn't Houston didn't lose because of the officials, but the way the game was officiated is what allowed Florida to hang around. When Houston got up to 12, if the refs had allowed them to keep playing, the Gators wouldn't have had room to come back. Richard was the only one hitting anything, but the refs tightened it up. The refs started sending the Gators to the line almost every possession. And I'm like,
Yeah.
And the Gators, I'll give it to their credit, were hitting every friggin' free throw.
Oh, they came through 17 out of 21 on a ball game. It's a nice number.
Houston barely went to the line, but
especially since 2 of those shots were taken by that one big man who averaged like 1 point a game, and he happened to be on the floor and he gets fouled. And those were 2 of the most serious boulders I've ever seen thrown up from the free throw stripe. You could take Chris Dudley, you could take all of the worst free throw shooters in basketball history that played on any kind of a level where you might be able to notice that they were really bad. Certainly, if you go to some park, you'll see a guy miss 20 in a row. But among free throw shooting that we've seen college pro level, those were the two of the worst shots I've ever seen in succession fired off. So and that was 2 of their misses. So the other guys were 17 out of 19. I don't know that I want to blame officials though. In totality, I don't know that you can. I mean, that's kind of a strange thing, and it really raises questions, not about the legitimacy of the ball game, but how does that happen? Where you have 4 fouls called in the first half, 23 in the second half, and naturally that was going to favor the Florida Gators, who I don't know if they were getting away with murder, but they were certainly getting to the stripe with tremendous frequency. Now their defense deserves credit also. They did play well defensively.
And that's why they got dinged for 5 fouls in 2.5 minutes. They were playing actually a lot of that game, and it was to their detriment in the second half. They were trying to they were out physicaling Houston, and the announcers kept talking about it, that it actually got them into a hole because they're not used to playing that physical brand. But it worked for them because they got away with murder. In the first half, they were being allowed to do whatever the hell they wanted. And the second half, again, in that 17-minute span, they were just beating the living crap out of Houston. And the refs kept the whistle in the pocket, which I wouldn't mind it if they didn't go the other way. But the problem is when you would go to the other end of the court, again, they called 11. They went from being a 5-0 advantage, Florida, to 11 to like 7 over the next like 13 minutes. And it was like, okay, that like what's going on here? Like both teams played the same way the whole game. Like I watched the game from tip to end. They played the same styles. They played the same way. And the refs were not the same. And if I'm Houston, I'm confused. That's my only problem, is that's how they win games, and you took it away from them in the second half. And then what you did was expose what all of us were worried about, and that's why I wanted Duke to be there. Their offense sucks. Like, their offense is rough. And Florida...
Well, those were some bad possessions, final minute. 20 seconds to go, too. I mean, you have to get off a shot. A friend of mine, the great Mike Jones, outstanding handicapper, he had a rooting interest in this ball game also, and he had the Florida Gators to win it. So he ended up on a winning end, and yet he was screaming about the play of the Houston Cougars in the final 20 seconds. And the reliance on the three-point shot, and maybe this comes back to Kelvin Sampson. I don't know what he called in the huddle there for a final play. But as you looked at 20 seconds to go on the clock, and the ball never got inside the three-point stripe, Lubie. What is that?
Well, that my problem was, and again,
they're down 2. They only need a 2-point basket. They only need to go to the stripe.
But it wasn't even there. Like, a lot of time when you watch teams, like when you're, and I'm a fan of it, the Heat, who have done this a lot. Like when you come back, there's always this number, you get to it, but you can't get over it, and then eventually you end up losing, right? Like, that's what it felt like may have, like Houston was holding a 3+ point lead, 1+ point lead, and the Gators would get close to taking the lead, but they hadn't had a lead since 8-6.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, stop futzing around, get it to, because Roberts, they had no answer for Roberts. He didn't make it all the time because he's a bull in a china shop. But like the Gators had no answer for him. And that's how they were getting to the line. And that's how they were getting foul calls, even when the refs had the whistle in the pocket. And for some reason, like they would just dance around. The McCray kid, the Ozuno kid, like they would just dance around the 3-point line, and they weren't going near the basket. And it was like, what are you guys doing? And I didn't understand. Literally, the last 4 possessions were horrendous. And they either got really bad plays off, because I don't even consider them shots. The McCray kid went to the one side of the basket, and like he had a jumper, but he took it a step further and did a weird floater thing and lost it. And then he came from the other end and did another weird floater thing and lost it. And then the next 2 possessions, they didn't even get a shot off. And it's like, again, we've talked about Samson. It feels like this is sort of Samson, where he teaches them great. Hamilton did this in Tallahassee for years, where defense is a preeminent thing, but their offense always leaves something to be desired. And that was a different. The Gators had good offense. They just Houston was bottling them up, and eventually they were able to make baskets at the end of the game. And Houston just twice in the last 10 minutes, they had one stretch where they went 6 possessions without scoring. And then at the end, they went 4 possessions without scoring, and it was
without getting off a shot there the last 3 possessions. No shot there. 3 or 4 possessions. Unbelievable. So the Gators are crowned national champions. Some are saying this was the best Final Four, greatest ever of all time. Don't know how you feel about that, Mike Lubie. It's kind of tough to say because you start thinking back, well, what other Final Four was that great? I don't know. There had to be some. Certainly there have been more dramatic victories. You go back, you see NC State and Jimmy Valvano running around. That was wild. This did not involve a monumental upset. 2 fairly evenly matched teams.
Yeah. It was a
spread. I don't know what it went off at, but it was hovering around 1.5 favoring the Gators.
Point a hook Gators is where
right, and you had to lay a price on both teams if you were going to bet them on the money line. You had to lay 105 to 100 on Houston. Looked like you had this game somewhat in the bag. It was trending exclusively Houston's way at 42-30. They have the ball. About 10 minutes to go in the ball game, and you're looking like you're on easy street and thinking, "Wow, maybe it's true, Lubie." After all of these years of listening to sports talk and sports analysis and sportscasters and reading various columns about what does it take to be a champion, and everybody always says the same thing: defense wins championships. I don't know how applicable that is in totality in basketball, but nonetheless, we saw where it looked like defense was going to prevail. The under players were dancing in the streets. That game was, we said, if Houston was going to win, it had to get fugly. It got a little bit fugly at different times. It was a little bit difficult to watch in terms of the offensive inefficiency for the game. And Houston, here's another one for you, a number that jumps off the page. Number 1 3-point shooting team in the country, Houston Cougars, Libby. Number 1 3-point shooting team in the country, 6 for 25 in a ball game from 3-point range, and including that last debacle there, where this Emmanuel Sharp goes up in the air. Give Clayton credit. He was trailing badly on that play. He got picked off a little bit as Sharp came out to the top of the key area there. He was still going to have a difficult time making that shot. That was was that going to be a 30-foot hoist that he was going to take? And you have to ask you, how did they let it get to that point? Well, wouldn't you want to attack the basket much earlier in the possession? And at the worst, play the free throw game, as you were saying, Lubie. But to get off a late shot, or not even get off a shot, just to go up in the air with the basketball. Clayton comes out, puts that was just above the level of token pressure, Lubie. Just enough to make Sharp think that his shot might have gotten blocked. And even if it did, would he not have been better off firing it than dropping the ball to the ground? That was very, very awkward.
I just thought all of it was bad. I mean, again, you don't go inside. Roberts literally was a man-child. He either was scoring or was making things happen, which would allow.
When you attack the basket at some point,
they just danced. They dribbled the ball a lot. They took forever to get into offensive possessions, and that just kept happening. The last 2 minutes was that the Gators at least would work the ball, would try and get to the basket, would try and put it on the refs. Houston didn't. Houston messed around.
Down 2. You're not holding for the last shot.
No, just go to the basket. Again, I would have Roberts was around the 3-point line. I would have had Roberts down low, and I would have got him the damn basketball, and either he puts it in or he gets a 3.
Have somebody drive to the basket, even if you had a little drawn kick, you kick it out to the corner or whatever. Get a shot that was far more viable. But nonetheless, we take nothing away. Florida Gators, whether they benefited from the referees, benefited from just offensive ineptitude at the end of the ball game by the Houston Cougars. They managed to rally back for the 3rd time in the last 3 ball games and win the national championships.
They 4 times. They did it 4 times.
Oh, that's right. I mean, look,
UConn, Texas Tech, Auburn, and literally 4. That's why Ken said they have a horseshoe up their ass. I'm like, yeah, but those teams always end up losing at some point.
Yeah.
They don't win a title with a horseshoe up their ass, but they also were a good team too. They look going into the tournament. It was between Duke and them is really who people thought were going to win it all. So they weren't fly by night by any means. It was just when you get in that many tough ball games in the tournament against other good teams, usually the other good teams find a way to hold on. and they had the secret sauce or whatever you want to call it to just have the fortitude to hang around. And that was my problem. I was like, dude, like Houston never pushed it up. Houston never pushed it open. The Gators
they had several opportunities to bury the Gators in that.
And they never did.
Several opportunities. And not only did they not put the cap on it and put the final nail in the coffin, open up 15 as they had the opportunity to do it 42-30, they quickly allowed, whether it was aided by the officials or not, they quickly allowed the Gators to get back, not just into the game, but right there toe-to-toe with them. And you had a funny feeling the way that was going that of the two teams, you were more likely to see the Gators prevail. And, of course, that they ended up on a stripe there an inordinate number of times. And that was that. So, greatest of all time, though. That's what people are saying. Is it just because you're looking at your last film, Lubie? Greatest of all time. I would have to do some thinking, maybe a little research and rack the memory a little bit to
like the fact
that.
Like the whole Final Four, the fact that Houston and Duke went down to the wire, the fact that Florida and Auburn went down to the wire, and then the championship game went down to the wire because there's been better championship games, like Carolina and Villanova. Like that was a horrendously played game. Like both offenses were sloppy. It was not a well-executed game. It just was close. Like the North Carolina Villanova game was a much better game. I mean, both teams were scoring. Both teams were playing good defense. Both teams were moving the ball. They came down to 2 game-winning shots. Like that game to me was a vastly better game. But that Final Four sucked. Like both.
Oh, it was awful. The 2
Final Four games sucked. So that's what I'm saying. Like, do they mean all 3 games? Because they may be right.
That's what you're talking about.
I'm trying to think of. Yeah. And again, this tournament was an atrocity. There was no upsets. Games were blowouts. So if they're thinking of the 3 games, that may be true. Like I'm trying to think of like
3 games collectively all come down to the wire. Final seconds. There was a lot of drama. I mean, that would be tough to find another Final Four where that was the case. As you said, that 2016 Final Four that we attended, 2 atrocious games in the semifinals, almost unwatchable women's college basketball type of stuff. And then the final game was great, was brilliant, maybe one of the best ever contested. But nonetheless, the 2 games leading up to it would be an automatic disqualifier. All right, so, yeah, I mean, people are naturally going to think that. If you're a Gator fan, you're certainly feeling that way. Yeah, but is it fair for South Florida to claim the Gators as their own? I mean, all of the local TV channels are celebrating this. I would imagine they probably have some Gator alum as part of the staff, Lubie. But should it be a statewide celebration, or should that be more a source of pain for fans here in the South Florida area where we originate the program from? Because the Gators... I don't know. I mean, for me, they were always the enemy of the state, Lubie. I don't begrudge them that though. And Todd Golden, youngest coach ever now to in the so-called modern era. What would the modern era consist of? Post Naismith, youngest guy ever to win a national championship at 39 years old. Well, what's his future look like now? Todd Golden was caught up in a little bit of controversy earlier in the year. I don't know that was ever clarified to the satisfaction of those that might have had a more deeply rooted interest in what the hell transpired there. Kind of quickly brushed off and brushed aside. Oh, no Title IX violations. Team had not many downs this year. They had one short period there where they gave you a cause for concern that maybe things were falling apart. The professor also alluded to the idea that early in the tournament, in their first couple of games, an uncharacteristic number of turnovers by the Gators. And that was plaguing them early in this game as well. And part of the major reason why they were falling behind. The other would be that refs were allowing the Cougars to do what they wanted.
That's what I was going to say.
Lubie, you really do always fall on that, though. Lubie.
I haven't blamed the refs in a long time. I don't think there was this call where the refs got it wrong. I think you just said it. Look, they called 4 fouls in the first half.
4 fouls.
20-something in the second half. You think the teams at halftime said, you know what? We're now going to start beating the crap out of each other. Like, if you watch the first half, it was a very physical brand of basketball.
Yes. You were almost watching a hockey game.
That it's like they gave each team their style. They're like, all right, Houston, we're going to give you we're going to let you play. Florida, we're going to call everything on Houston. Like, that's what it felt. And that is what I don't get. Like, pick. Yes, you're right. If they did one way the whole way, Florida probably would have ran away with it. If they did one way the other way, Houston probably would have extended that lead. Because again, that's why they were turning it over. Because they were letting Houston get away. They weren't getting it wasn't getting away. They were just playing their physical defense. Both teams were playing physical defense. The second half, the only difference is one got called for stuff, the other one didn't. Like that was my problem. Is it's not that the refs won or lost the game. It's Ken talked about
their style completely.
And talked about this. And that's going in. That's why it was a toss-up. It's how will the refs be? It's just usually they're one way a whole game.
They got two of Houston's key players in foul trouble also when they exited the floor.
Too big. Had to miss.
They became a smaller unit. Yeah.
Had to miss.
All of a sudden, they're going inside the Gators on every possession.
The Gators had 5 out in 2.5 minutes. Not one dude was in foul trouble. Again, this is a conspiracy. No, it's not that. It's not. This was clear that it wasn't about like refs stealing a game or anything. It was style of play. And we talked about it going into the game. Yeah. It's just weird to see such a change in the middle of a game. Like, why now? Because stuff that they were allowing them to do in the first half, they were calling fouls and sending the Gators to the line in the second half. And I'm like, the first half they did that.
Who talked to these officials at halftime, Lubie? What do you think?
I don't know. I don't look. It maybe opened it up a little bit and made it less ugly because it was ugly as hell in the first half. It was like 30 to it was like.
Did the Gambinos have money on the Florida Gators? What was that the deal? And all of a sudden, one of the officials got the call at halftime. Hey, this better change.
I'm not saying anything. Maybe the Gators would have figured it out. It's just when they let them play physical, the beginning of the second half.
Here's our analysis.
Try to be physical. The announcers were saying, "Yeah, this ain't working for the Gators." You know. Yeah. So and that's when sort of the tide turned with the officiating. So it was like, I don't know if it's conscious. I'm not even trying to take it from the Gators because the Gators had a good tournament.
No, they were fine. They're deserving champions.
It's not easy. You know, they got enough from Richard to hang in that game when Clinton couldn't find anything. Like Condon, who's supposedly one of the best players, did nothing in the game. So like, the Gators did what they had to do to win. Golden's a good coach. They found a way to win. Again, this wasn't like the Rams in that conference championship. Like this play, the refs. It wasn't like that. It was style of officiating matters, especially when you're playing. Both teams are playing physical basketball, and the way they officiated that game was weird, to say the least, to me.
No, it was a startling number when I heard Billis saying that about there were only 4 fouls called in the first half. I was not even remotely.
And they both are beating the crap out of each other. Both teams are beating the crap out of each other.
I mean, Houston had a guy on Clayton that looked like Sonny Liston in sneakers.
yes. So it was like
beating the crap out of this guy. How do you hold a guy like that to such a feeble, inept shooting? I mean, he looked less than ordinary in the first half of that game and through the first 3 quarters of the game. Then all of a sudden he came to life a little bit. And as you said, they got to the stripe. I don't know that I would dispute any of the calls that were made on Clayton or in his favor, but it was strange. I mean, the discrepancy in the way the game was being officiated one half to the other. And that would have been one of your primary considerations. Are they going to allow Houston to do what they normally do? And that is rough people up a little bit.
Yes,
and when they didn't in the second half, it was painful to watch. It really was, especially if you had Houston up 12 at that point.
Because Houston can't hang in that way. Like they can't score. Their offense is really rough, and like they were getting baskets in the first half, so it was, and in the beginning of the second half. But then when they started sending Gators to the stripe, and Houston's offense really became the focal point, their offense. I mean, again, they went 2 different periods of over like 2-3 minutes without scoring at all and having just really inept possessions.
Did they have 3 turnovers in their last 4 possessions? Something like that?
Oh, yeah. Again, I don't know what you call them, McCray, because he went up for baskets, but neither ball left his hand toward the rim. Like I think it's 4 straight turnovers because he would go up. He did 2 different times before the last 2 possessions where he went up and like lost. He did some awkward ass thing and
it looked like a gyroscope was in a ball all of a sudden.
So it was like, I would call those 4 straight turnovers. Like, and the Gators played great defense, and they were allowing them to play great defense.
They were hustling defensively, no question.
Allowing Houston, but you still get a shot up.
You can't justify that. We're 20 seconds to go in a game, and not only do you not get a shot off, but the ball never crosses the 3-point stripe in a 20-second possession. And they held the ball for almost all of those 20 seconds. And you're asking yourself, why wouldn't you at least get off a shot within the first? I mean, where's Paul Westhead when you need him?
Exactly.
Get off an early shot in that possession, and at the worst, even if you miss and they get the rebound and you foul, okay, at the worst, you're down 4, but you still have 15, 16 seconds to go to operate with. That's enough time.
That was the one advantage they had. Their offensive rebounding was solid. The volleyball crap that they were doing was working, but it doesn't work on 3-pointers or fumbles. Like, you have to put stuff at the rim, and it was working for them. Like, that's my thing is, and it showed again. I leaned Sampson because he's the experienced coach, and I don't know if Golden outcoached him. Honestly, a lot of it, I just think
Golden had his share of serendipitous luck in this tournament.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. But Sampson definitely could have coached himself to a title. It feels like if they had better offensive strategy in the last 2 minutes, I think they could have won by 5 or 6. Like, again, they were up by 3 with the ball multiple times and came away with nothing.
Zipperoni, yeah.
And
all right, there you have it, as they say. So a lot of interesting things happened during the course of the tournament. We'll get into some of that, and I'm sure we'll have. And later on this morning, conversations. We're going to have Scott Spinelli with us. Outstanding. We had many analysts on during the course of the tournament. Of course, Jim Larinaga was great. Excellent stuff, and kind of called it in a lot of ways when he was talking about his assessment of Houston and Florida. Was both spot on. I think that he favored Duke to win the championship, which was not an assumption that you would be startled by, but nonetheless, Duke and Jay Billis was blaming the ACC now for Duke's loss. Never could he possibly say, "Hey, Duke choked."
Or that they weren't. It wasn't tough. Like, they didn't have it.
They weren't tested during the course of the regular season because the ACC was horrible this year. And so where I was looking at this and another, just arcane reference, but the biggest choke since Mama Cass, which the truth is she didn't die of choking from a ham sandwich or choking on a ham sandwich. Yeah. There was no Heimlich maneuver done there. She was like ingesting whatever. Just pure, unadulterated, uncut cocaine, I think, at the time, and had a heart attack, right? Because it was like 400 pounds. But yes. the story was better when it was thought that she choked on a ham sandwich. Not that we wish anybody to pass away at an early age like that, but it was this sort of rotund woman, and she died stuffing her face, supposedly. Not to impugn the integrity of her great career, but yeah, that's what I thought, and yet here Billis is kind of passing it off as, well, yeah, you know what, the ACC, that may be a problem, Jay, but guess what? Duke choked. That was one of the monumental choke jobs of all time in any sport that we've ever witnessed, where it seemed impossible for them to lose from the position that they were in.
Yeah, that was choke. Last night I wouldn't say choke. Last night Houston just played their game.
Yeah, it was just a scrum.
It was what people were worried about with Houston. Duke, they gave it away. That last 45 seconds was something to behold.
Yeah. and needless to say, I knew my money was going up in smoke. We were talking about how Jim Nantz was going to be in the crowd. They made sure they showed a lot of Jim Nantz. Hello, friends. And Hakeem Olajuwon was there. I would imagine other dignitaries were there representing the Houston Cougars. Never won the championship. And I had this image earlier in the afternoon when I was talking about it with the Greek on his radio show. I had the image of Nance and Hakeem just as despondent as Cryer was and Emmanuel Sharp after the ball game. And then it hit me that the Gators were probably going to win this thing. Yeah. Plus, I had a monetary interest in the other side. So, of course, the Gators were going to win that thing. And there goes dinner at the Cafe Seville. Unfortunate for me and the gentleman that I was partnered up with in the pool. And it keeps my record intact, though, Lubie, having never won a bracket pool lifetime. 0 for what, about 60?
I too have never won, so
0 for 60. I'm like Devers was. By the way, he turned things around after we had alluded to the fact that he was 0 for 21, Rafael Devers of the Boston Red Sox.
Nice.
Started the season 0 for 21 with 15 strikeouts. You said send them down to the minors.
Yeah, or at least sit him to shake him up.
Send him down. He proceeds from that moment on. He might have been watching or listening to the show.
Yeah.
From that moment on, he then went on a 10 for 17 tear. Now it's 10 for 21 as he was 0 for 3 in the game yesterday and made it out in his final at bat in the previous ball game. But so he's hitting like 240 something already. Lindor had the same thing. Francisco Lindor. The Marlins were in New York. The Miami Marlins, surprisingly, already with 6 wins.
5.
What we 5 wins, right?
5 wins. I said to Sarnia, so I saw him the other day, and I was like, "Look, whatever it is, I didn't think they'd have 5 wins till like June." So
Yeah, tremendous accomplishment. This guy's manager of the year, this McCullough. This is not a pleasant circumstance. I don't know how it is at Citi Field. I'm not sure if the structure blocks this breeze that comes off the bay there. And you're there in Flushing, Queens. But the coldest I'd ever been, I've talked about this. I remember getting off a plane in Minot, North Dakota. I was about to call a Virgil Hill fight that was taking place in Bismarck. He was fighting in like some high school gym. He liked to be there in front of his home fans in North Dakota. And coldest I've ever been. I just wasn't prepared for it. I'm a South Florida guy. We were having warm weather at that time, as we always do, but it was particularly warm. I leave on the plane, the usual T-shirt and a pair of cotton pants, get off the plane, and before you have a chance, I think my coat's in my bag. You walk out there frozen, but I was even colder, and this includes all of those years at Syracuse. So we'll be trying to get to the quad there when it was 50 below wind chill. And the coldest I ever was at a Met game at Shea Stadium in April, where the wind was just whipping. I don't know if you've ever been to Shea Stadium. The wind is whipping off the bay, and the temperature had to be maybe supposedly 40 degrees, but with that wind, it felt like it was well below zero for all 9 innings. And I was with Ira the Met fan, one of these guys, one of these pain-in-the-ass guys. As much as I love him.
I won't leave.
Well, we can't leave before the game is over.
Oh, God.
It's 9-1 in favor of the Braves, Ira. We're out of here. I'm on their blankets that he brought. I mean, I've never been so cold in my life because you're just sitting there taking a beating.
He's in like his 80s, and he's the one that wants to stay.
He's got a scorecard out there. Was that 6-3? Did you happen to notice?
It was classic.
You're keeping score? Get out of here. I can't even, fathom holding a pen.
Who cares?
Had one of those little 10-cent pencils you used to get, the golf pencils they sold there.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? The scorecard was 10 cents, and the pencil was 25.
Yeah, exactly.
But freezing. And so last night, it was horrid conditions, as it was like 40 degrees. So the game that was scheduled for tonight, they've moved it up 3 hours. Is that going to help, Lubie?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
It's supposed to be in the 30s or 20s tonight in New York City. They're playing baseball.
Crazy the weather there compared to what we have right now.
Is that what we have to turn our attention to now? Baseball, Lubie? What are we going to do?
I don't know. And one NBA's going on. The playoffs will be next week?
Hockey playoffs are coming up. Your Panthers are in a tailspin. Toronto Maple Leafs looking hot. I was thinking about this. I believe he's writing now, covering the Maple Leafs for the Toronto Globe and Mail. So I'm going to give my friend Marty Klinkenberg a shout and see if he can't give us some kind of, because we have done nothing on the National Hockey League. Have we? There'll be nothing. Zero.
There's been a lot going on.
Wouldn't even know the league existed. They have 5 games left in the regular season before the ultimate bloodbath, where we'll all be professing, as we do every year, oh, my God, can you believe this? This is the toughest championship to win in sports, which I believe that it is.
Oh, yeah.
NHL playoffs? Are you kidding me? When we got to the finals a couple of years ago when the Panthers lost to the Las Vegas Golden Knights, they're starting 5 in the lineup, but we're all playing the healthiest guy had a broken back.
Yeah. No, I mean, by the end of the playoffs, you're like dead.
Guys are having amputations, and they're out there for the next period. Yeah, well, they cut his toe off in between periods there, and had to mold a special pair of skates. Otherwise, he would have been out there sooner. You're like, what are you talking about? What are we talking Lou Groza here on skates? All right, we're going to come back with more in a moment. Jeff DeForest, we got Mike Lubitz. Later on, 10 o'clock today, we'll have conversations with Scott Spinelli. We get deeper into his analysis. Might be more spot on than us screaming about referees, Lubie. But it was a discrepancy, the likes of which, I mean, you would have to think that somebody got to somebody at halftime, no?
It was. Look, again, you said it, just looking at it, don't be a fan, don't be emotional.
I didn't have, I'm okay with even losing with Houston. It didn't really.
Just look at the numbers. Like, again, from one half, they called 4 for the entirety.
Yeah.
The second half, they called 5 on the Gators in 2.5 minutes, and then they called 11 on Houston over the next, 13 minutes. I mean, that's a foul a minute. Like, every other possession, they're calling a foul. And at one point, it was every possession they were calling a foul. Again, like you said, they called 3 fouls in 9 seconds.
At a Gator, they had one where a Gator big man whose name escapes me is literally like he's shoving two guys back with both arms, and I don't know how they ended up calling the foul, and it was justified. Ian Eagle on the call in the game. I don't know if he participated in the conversation. Oh yeah, well that was clearly on Houston. I'm like, well, what are you kidding me? This guy is shoving these guys like he was Andrew Galante. He's even going with a couple of low blows. And so how could they not make contact with him? He's the one pushing back with both arms extended, holding two guys off, and they blow a whistle and they send the guy to the line. Unbelievable.
And I don't know if I'll hear the entire conversation with Spinelli, but I'm curious. As someone who is a professional and also unbiased because he's from the Northeast, so he doesn't care about the Gators or Houston. So I'm curious what he has to say from that. Because again, I'm not even trying to be biased. I hate the Gators with a passion, and I actually did pick Houston to win it all. But just looking at the numbers, I'm like, this is really weird the way they're calling this game.
To change like that, though, is I mean that's somewhat inexcusable, isn't it?
Well, and they didn't talk about it on the call. Like that, I know announcers don't talk about everything, but a lot of times they'll talk about how games are being officiated, and it like they never really touched on it. Like it's
not like they had a moment, an epiphany, and said, "All right, that's enough."
No, yeah, that's what it's just weird. Like I'm just saying, like let's say at the 5-minute mark, you could look at the fouls and be like, "Wow, that's interesting, guys." You know, look at the way this definitely favors it. You know, they never touched on it at all. So I was like, maybe I'm making it up. Like maybe I hate the Gators so much.
First thing that stood out to me.
Like, but then you said I didn't even know that number. I didn't realize they called that little. I know what they did in the second half. It was a foul fest. The first half, I didn't know that they called that little. Like, I didn't even realize that.
That's, I mean, I have to give Bill his credit. The first thing he said when he came on the set there in the post-game analysis was, how is that possible? That and you know, it wasn't making a case, and this takes nothing to discredit, as we said. I'm not saying that the refs handed the game.
So what was he saying? Like, it was just weird.
I thought, well, I mean, you know, considering the overall physicality of the first half, how there were only 4 fouls called, what was remarkable in and of itself. And most of the time, that kind of officiating is commended as saying, well, you know what, they let them play. Now, people can go too far with that. And sometimes the idea, you're watching an NFL game or a college football game, well, they're really letting the boys play today. I kind of like that. But, well, it's garbage if some guy is like Fred the Hammer Williamson and he's clobbering him over the head with a forearm shiver. That's not exactly letting him play. That's bad officiating. But if you are going to do that for 20 minutes of a championship caliber game on top of that, how do you completely change the approach in the second half? You can't do it.
I know. Look,
I may as well have instituted a balk rule. That's the only thing they didn't call the second half.
I know we sound bitter, so I'm just curious. Someone who's unbiased, if they know
it was just strange. I'm not really, like I said, I'm not bitter about it. If you are looking at officiating in any ball game, whether it benefited the Gators or not, I mean, it's possible that they were getting so badly hosed in the first half and only made up for it. So. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that if you were looking at the discrepancy, it's startling. And you really have to start, if you're a conspiracy theorist when it comes to sports, you're starting to think that something happened at halftime. No? I don't know if Spinelli will come up with that, but that somehow some international crime ring was involved. See if there was an inordinate amount of betting on the Gators for the second half, because they had made all of those comebacks.
I just want to see what the
we're going to come back with more, much more to discuss here. You got the Masters coming up this week. About 5 games to go in the NBA. Still on at stake in terms of a battle for position, especially Lubie. I know we don't touch on this so much because we're buried here in the Southeast. But the West is wild in terms of juxtaposition possibilities for not only clinching a spot that doesn't involve being in a play-in, but where you stand there. And it encompasses a ton of teams. Memphis, Minnesota, Golden State, the Clippers, I believe, are all tied for the 6th through 8th spots. No, Denver's involved in there also. And any one or all of them can completely flip-flop before the last 4 or 5 games are played. So that's kind of interesting. And you've been tracking your Miami Heat. 3 games they'll have to go for Miami. They win over Sacramento in 2 games contested in the NBA last night.
Oh, because they beat the Sixers.
Beat the Sixers, who are not trying at all. And
No one. Yeah,
shouldn't they be fined every game for the pathetic tank
is,
job? I hope they get the Elgin Baylor treatment on the Draft Lottery show, which is probably the worst piece of television this side of Jim Gray's The Decision with LeBron James. At least that involved some element of drama that you were willing to stick with, as much as it was insufferable putting up with the first 59 minutes and 30 seconds of that show. Did that actually run over? Did that run long before LeBron said, I'm taking my talents to Miami? Shut the bleep up, Jim Gray. Get out of my life. Once and for all. Paid for his own star on the Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, that was weird. That's weird.
As if he was Sir Lawrence freaking Olivier. Get out of here. What a annoying twerp Jim Gray has been throughout his announcing career. And despicable, too, with that stupid smirk. Hey, Mike, did you mean to hit him in the butt? You know, I mean, you were always hoping that either Pete Rose or Tyson would swap.
Hit him, yeah. So hit him.
Unreal. But, yeah, I mean, a lot more definitely to look forward to as we take a look at the slate, including this stuff in the NBA. Sacramento beat Detroit 127-117. So you don't get into this? I mean, do we just wait for the postseason and then go, oh, well, look at that. They ended up in 10th spot.
No, I mean, because the Heat are anywhere from 7 to 10. So, okay. You're playing the same teams, maybe home or away, whatever.
Yeah.
The West is interesting. I didn't realize from 3 to 8 is 2 games.
It really is the Wild West. Denver, who I was picking to win it all just a couple of weeks ago, shows you what I know about basketball, Mr. UConn.
Yeah.
They're horrible now. And in jeopardy of falling into the play-in tournament themselves.
Yeah,
I think that's where they're at, but I mean, in jeopardy of maybe even falling to the 9th or 10th spot. Phoenix is the team that's out of it. Yet another failed Big Three attempt. Why do owners always and GMs always fall for the idea that the Big Three is going to work?
Look, I like people that go for it, as we've talked about, right? Like, you'd rather that than what the Marlins do. But just going for it blindly doesn't mean you're going to
think it through. Yes.
Like when those two were put together, everyone who knows the NBA was like, okay.
not every Big Three configuration is equipped to be a Big Three.
No. Those are three guys.
When the Boston Celtics, would you say that they started this thing, the Celtics?
But they had a really
Ray Allen.
The guys were older, but the guys matched perfectly. Like that's what they did.
There was a symmetry to the part.
3 totally different dudes,
yes.
Totally different things, and they filled it out with a cast of characters that worked. Like the Heats were like in the middle somewhere, where Wade and LeBron do a lot of the similar things, but at least Bosch was different. And they had their issues early on because they had a lot of similarities. Like a lot of these other ones, it's just a lot. Look, Paul George and Leonard, like a lot of these are just putting the same guy together with other guys like him and hoping that they just score a lot. And that'll
over the hill, former superstar that's coming back from injury after 2 years of being in a malaise. And then all of a sudden you got Paul George. Oh, boy. Like that was going to turn things around. Meanwhile, Embiid is half a cripple at this stage of his career. It's unfortunate because I think he's an outstanding player, very entertaining guy to watch for a big man, shoots threes, does a lot of things, seems to really enjoy the game, except when he's losing. Doc Rivers, I mean, leaving that guy in that ball game, man, that was, you talk about coaching bonehead maneuvers. That was right up there with, is anybody going to criticize Kelvin Sampson for what happened in the last couple of minutes in that game?
The offensive
Did they have no clue what they were doing at that point?
It just sucks that they never went inside at all. Like Roberts could have made it a little bit more physical, could have slowed things down, and they really didn't get him the ball. It was just weird.
Cryer doesn't get the ball at all on the offensive end. He's kind of a meaningless, almost a decoy.
McCoy.
Nothing. Unbelievable. All right, coming back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
Brooks Koepka. Lubie. How about Brooks Koepka for the Masters?
Nice.
Price. It's $850.
Play the ponies in style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you all.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you...
I have sinned against you, my Lord.
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on The Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. Referee Bitch Fest here so far on the program through about 50 minutes or so of the show, and that was exceedingly strange. Of all the things that happened, of all the numbers, I mean, they were getting sabermetrics and analytics. I was reading an article about how the Gators assembled their team, and they did it with sabermetrics and a series of analytics and numbers that were uncommonly applied by other teams. Other teams tended to concentrate on the more basic stats that you can see that are readily apparent, scoring, average, this, that. The Gators apparently had a team of mathematicians that could exceed anything that was accomplished by the late, great Rene Descartes, man, the guy who invented the graph. And did a lot of other things, man. That was an interesting cat. How did these guys accomplish so much back in so-called ancient times, Libby, where they checked out at the age of 32, and yet
Yeah, exactly.
they erected structures in Italy that are still standing today from like 1512.
That's true.
How is this possible? Works of art, incredible. And then they did other stuff too. They had like rock bands. They did all philosophically. They were putting stuff out there that lasted forever. Are we just wasting our lives
I
watching?
was gonna say they're more focused. We watch a lot of sports.
But the numerology supposedly that the Gators applied was taking into account other things, overall floor game, whatever. I don't know. I mean, they were looking at some really obscure aspects of things. Also factored in a lot of steals and blocks. So maybe that attributes to the fact that while everybody was talking about Houston's defense that got banged up and dinged up because of foul trouble, the Florida Gators defense was nothing to sneer at. I mean, they certainly made a good account of themselves on the defensive end of the floor, including in the final 2 minutes. How long was it at the end of the game that Houston didn't get off a shot? Not just the last 20 seconds, but in the couple of possessions prior to that they were really, really stuck. All right, I love the Masters tournament. Who doesn't like watching the Masters? Or do people think that it's some kind of sanctimonious celebration of the obnoxious? I don't know. What do you think, Libby? There were many things of concern about Augusta National. That was true of the entire PGA Tour, though, for the most part. Where, I mean, many of their events were taking place at can you even use a word like exclusion? At country clubs where at certain, we don't welcome your type here. Can you hear Hootie Johnson saying something like that? Are you here to apply for one of the busboy positions? Because they're all filled, my friend. I'm sorry. No, I'm here to buy a membership. Condoleezza Rice. When they finally did relent on some of that, although you would have to think, talk about token pressure, was that just token homage that they had to pay to a little bit of diversity at the time to elude the criticism and the mounting acrimony that was accumulating about the whole idea of the concept of this club to begin with. Augusta National. But that being said, even with the phony birds, I still love the tournament. I don't know about you, Libby. You're not as much of a golf fan as I am. I don't think. You don't watch it as much. You don't bet on it.
Years ago, I used to keep an eye on it, but it's been a while. I liked when the young guys were coming up, and you would get like Day and Spieth and Fowler, McIlroy would be in the Dustin Johnson. Now I don't know. There's a lot of people I don't know, and I know there's another group of young people that are doing interesting things. And I hope they keep golf interesting. Having Tiger there to hate for a long time was something, and there's no one to really like or hate in golf right now.
No, Scotty Scheffler is devoid of personality.
Yeah, like you can't hate him.
You can't help but feel anything but indifferent to him from a personal standpoint. And is he likable? Yeah, he's all right.
It's fine.
I mean, the fact, the odds of him getting arrested at the Masters last year had to be enormous. Did anybody have that? Did anybody have Scotty Scheffler to get arrested before the third round of the Masters, then come out of jail and play? If you bet that, and then imagine parlaying that, not even being satisfied to cash that ticket, Lubie, but thinking, you know what? What if it happens again? Is that not the problem in terms of the natural self-sabotage of all gamblers, that you think you can hit it again? And so imagine parlaying that. It would have to be odds that would, you would have to break a small country, never mind a bookie. If you parlay that Scotty Scheffler, is that even on the table, will get arrested again at this year's Masters. Nice parlay there, right? 2 years in a row it happens. They take him away in handcuffs.
I don't think it'll happen.
What will he do this time? Drive his car through the Butler cabin? If he drove his car intentionally through Butler cabin, in fact, if he rented like a U-Haul and had it loaded with explosives and drove it right onto the set as Jim Nantz was saying, "Hello, friends." And those birds are chirping in the background. And you realize there are no birds there, man. It's like 12 degrees outside. What are you talking about? How did that guy even identify that it was the wrong type of bird?
People have a lot of time on their hands.
And it was like a northern Minnesotan warbler.
It was just from like Alaska or something.
And there was no way that bird was indigenous to anywhere near. Couldn't fly anywhere near Amen Corner. And that's how they got ratted out. Jose. That was for the great Jose Canseco. I saw that clip again from Bleacher Brothers, A.J. Johnson, Jose Canseco. Jose Canseco going off for like an hour on how A.J. is misusing the definition and the origin of the word rat. And that he became an ignorant New Yorker as a result of that. It couldn't be any more classic. You're looking at just an absolutely amazing meltdown. This was, bigger than the meltdown in Network, right? I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. At least that was something that had a reasonable cause behind it. Whereas this was just flat out a guy who was a rat taking offense at the use of the word rat, even though it was applied to somebody else in a very innocent fashion. It's a remarkable piece of video. You guys definitely need to check that out on Bleacher Brothers, as you can check out Conversations with Scott Spinelli. More of this outstanding analysis and a postscript on the college basketball season. There were a lot of coaching changes. We'll check into who benefited and who got the best of that, and what the future is. NIL, has it finally manifested itself in the evil that people thought what was going to come about when only the rich get richer? Is the Cinderella team dead, Lubie?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Dead.
With the COVID thing done, maybe teams won't be able to load up on older guys. So maybe
no more 25-year-olds playing basketball.
It feels like if guys have any kind of good year, they're going to go to a big school, and that's what allowed the small schools to make a move. Is they would keep those like a Steph Curry was there to his sophomore year, junior year at Davidson. Like that guy's not doing that now. He shows any signs of life his freshman year. Big schools are swooping in, so the small schools, it's tough for them to have that team that's been there for 5 years, like what Drake did. Like what Drake, people thought Drake would be interesting because they had a bunch of guys that had grown up together, and you don't get that in the big schools because they're worried about McDonald's All-Americans who are one and done. I don't know. A lot of people have said that's something that may have affected the Cinderellas and may continue, is that the small schools can't hold on to.
Will there ever be any kind of organizational
Yeah, you would think.
movement to kind of regulate this? Is it even possible to bring that about
Yeah,
anymore?
the schools. It's like in the professional sports because the owners can't trust themselves to not pay people.
Salary caps and
They
all
do
that.
salary caps to control themselves. At
How
some
great
point,
is that? That's a
I think
great
it's the
concept.
dumbest thing ever. But at some point, the schools themselves will go. I mean, you're going to keep losing good, like really good coaches are like, I'm just going to go to the pros or stop this. Like, it's just not
Yeah.
fun. Like having no footing, because that's the thing is it went from being unfair to now it's worse than the pros. Like there's no free agency, there's no nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
It's just
How come we haven't heard, about prominent agents? I'm sure there are many that are handling these college kids now, just in NIL deals. We haven't seen like a Drew Rosenhaus type emerge.
No, they're
The
quiet.
king of the sort of thing.
No, they're quiet.
Yeah, it seemed to be laying very low, aren't they? Although anybody inside the game, including Scott Spinelli, would tell you that what's happening is an agent is calling every school.
Just
saying my kid's in the portal. I got $1.2 million here, and if you got $1.4 million for me, he's signing. He'll be at Baylor next year.
Listen, Dan Patrick, and I forgot who was on with him, where he was just talking about it. But like that's what's happening is the agents, because schools is tampering, but it's not for agents. So the agent will reach out before. That's why you'll see kids go into the portal and then 10 minutes later be committing to a school.
Yeah,
like they're not in the portal. Oh, he was with Danny Hurley. It was Danny Hurley, and he was saying like that's the thing is kids will not be in the portal at all. They're on a team, but they
already have a deal. Sure,
better deals.
Yeah,
and whoever gives them a better deal, then suddenly they're in the portal and then committed.
What a mess. All right. Greatest Final Four ever. Mull that over, people. We'll come back. We'll talk with you again tomorrow. It's a pleasure being with you today. From Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. 10 o'clock on Bleacher Brothers. We'll have Scott Spinelli, and we'll have an even deeper analysis than Lubie and I looking at the discrepancy first half, second half with the referees. But I would imagine he'll address that because that's a strange thing. All of a sudden, the strike zone is a different strike zone.
Look,
as you
this
said.
guy Henry broke it down.
This time.
Well, even when they were letting them play rough and tumble, the game was close. And even when they changed, Houston did have a 12-point lead. That's fine.
Yeah.
But also, you notice right after that, the Gators are going to the line a lot. So, again, I'm not saying the refs gave anyone the win or took the win away from anyone. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it was confusing in the manner of how one half they officiated one way and one half it was a 180-degree opposite. Like it wasn't even
like
close.
They had Eric Gregg from the Grave officiating this game. And all of a sudden, he had the Maddox plate extenders. And he was giving them to Levon Hernandez. Fred McGriff is still standing at home plate there. If you go to Hard Rock Stadium, you will see Fred McGriff. That actually is Fred McGriff. He's still standing there, stunned. That a pitch that was 6 feet outside was called a strike. It was like that opening day strike that Charlie Huff threw in '93 for the Marlins, where ball bounces in the dirt 5 feet in front of home plate. Takes 2 hops to get to the catcher because it was the first pitch in Marlins history. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll see you next time as we leave you now that.
The time.
It's 9:04.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.